Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. My guest this week is a very familiar face. You all know Game and Fish Director Terry Steinwand. We're going to talk about the year gone by and some of the challenges and issues that the department faced. We're also going to talk about what's coming up in 2016, what we're going to be challenged by then. Terry, you had a busy year in 2015.
Yeah, it was busy, and every other year always is busy with the legislative session. I think we fared fairly well, and the sportsmen and women in North Dakota fared pretty well in the legislative session. But basically, for the first 4 months of 2015, that really dominated our lives at Game and Fish here, at least in administration. You got to be up there daily. You're talking to legislators. They're asking for answers, looking for information. So that was a large part of it. And you know, the good part of it is we had a relatively mild winter. Not a lot of snow, not a lot of depredation complaints. Spring turned out pretty well in terms of the hatch. We had some areas of the state were a little too wet and too cool for the upland bird hatch, but just judging from what's occurring this fall and early winter, things turned out pretty well.
What, in your estimation, Terry, was the biggest single challenge that the Game and Fish Department faced in 2015?
Boy, a single challenge. I guess we deal with so many issues on a day-to-day basis.
Really, there has to be one, though.
The one that does pop to mind, very honestly, is boating access. It may seem like it's not that big of an issue, but we really only have 2 people out in the field there dealing with 450 lakes and boating access on those lakes. It's become an issue in terms of it takes time to contract that stuff, and we pride ourselves on reacting and responding to requests very, very rapidly. And these guys have done a tremendous job, but they're getting stressed out pretty bad.
Is this something that's fixable?
Well, you throw enough money and you throw enough manpower at something, it's ultimately fixable. We're certainly looking at different ways to fix it, and it's going to involve some prioritization, and some people and some lakes are probably not going to get the immediate service that they've become accustomed to as in the past. So, yeah, and of course, one of the bigger challenges, again, almost, well, not record low deer gun license numbers, but certainly equivalent to 3 or 4 decades ago. That's always a challenge, but we're coming off a record high about 7 years ago, going into not necessarily record lows, but certainly a lot lower, and 90 to 95,000 deer gun applications and only 43,000 licenses available. That becomes a challenge, and we got to work through that pain, and it looks like it's starting to pay off. Now, if we have a hard winter again, it could knock us back just to where we were. So we're praying for a relatively mild winter again. It
seems like a lot of the anecdotal things that we heard at the advisory board meetings and places like that was that deer hunters, for the most part, were fairly happy with the amount of deer that they saw.
Almost everyone I've talked to said, geez, we're seeing good numbers of deer. We've seen twins out there. Even in the northeast part of the state, we're going to probably do some emphasis on deer habitat, primarily trees in the way northeast. I talked to an individual just within the last couple of days that said, gosh, I haven't seen that many deer in 7-8 years. Well, 7-8 years ago was when we were at the height of it. So that's good news. But again, a lot of our information shows that winter weather is a primary driver of whether or not we can rebuild that deer herd.
And of course, habitat is going
to
be
habitat, absolutely. If you have 3 components of habitat. Of course, the winter cover, which could be trees, cattail sloughs. If we don't get a lot of snow, it can be large grassy areas. The spring fawning, there's certainly going to be grass in most areas of the state. Northeast is primarily tree rows. And of course, you got the food source. Being an agricultural state, it becomes a little bit of an issue with some landowners, but food source is normally not an issue unless it's a real hard winter.
One thing that really hasn't been a challenge, at least for the last 4 or 5 years that I can remember, is fishing. Now, you mentioned boating access, but now the fishing in North Dakota, I can't remember it ever being any better.
It is absolutely tremendous. The guys in the fisheries division doing a tremendous job out there, stocking record numbers of fish out of the hatcheries. I think we're on our 3rd consecutive record-setting fishing license sales year. it's going to get better. But ultimately, people are going to remember these are the good old days, and why can't we keep it like this? We aren't going to be able to keep it like this forever, but fishing is going to be good for a number of years yet. And I think we can attribute a lot of that starting in 1993 with the wet conditions that we've been going in. It's created a lot more lakes. It's raised water levels in some lakes, which makes it a lot easier to maintain those throughout a winter. So I expect them to be good. Right now, I mean, gee whiz, we're in the middle of December, and people are open water fishing on Devil's Lake, and they're ice fishing on Devil's Lake in some of the bays. I've seen boats on the Missouri River, and I've heard pretty good stories about some good catches. Some good panfish lakes going on out there early in the season. But I always have to caution everybody, please be careful when you're out on the ice there. We've had to rescue a couple parties out there already, not because they made some mistakes, it's just very variable,
Unstable ice.
unstable ice conditions and weather conditions. So just be careful when you go out there.
There are other high points that we should touch upon too, Terry. I guess pheasant numbers are on the way back.
Pheasant numbers, sharp-tailed grouse, absolutely. And again, we attribute that to a large part to the fairly decent spring weather we had. It wasn't the wet cold we'd had for the previous 2 or 3 years. But again, you still need that nesting habitat out there. It becomes a buffet line for predators, whether it's skunks or raccoons or coyotes or fox or whatever it might be. If you just have a small strip of grass, which they absolutely require, not small strips, but they need grass for the nesting. And if you provide that buffet line, all that predator has to do is walk up and down there and he gets an easy meal. So the large expanses, and we have some of those out there yet, which is one reason that pheasant and sharp-tailed population have rebounded.
Some of the issues that we faced as an agency in 2015 are probably going to pop up again in 2016.
They always do, Tom. One of the issues that we've been working on and going to put more emphasis on in 2016 is species of concern, or the Endangered Species Act. People think, well, it's just going to affect this and this. It's going to affect agriculture, it's going to affect energy, it's going to affect game and fish. Because once these species go on an endangered species list, whether it's endangered or threatened, it has the potential to affect how we're able to manage certain species. Certainly affects the private landowner out there. And we depend on private landowners for providing habitat, providing access for hunters and anglers. So that is one of the emphasis we're on. And we're spending the money we can anyway, the funding that we have, getting some of that information to hopefully say, okay, we're in better shape than we think we are. And if not, here's what we're going to have to do to prevent it from being listed.
Any other issues that may pop up in 2016 that we may be up against?
There's always something that pops up, Tom, that we just don't anticipate, or if we did, we didn't anticipate it well enough. I'm pretty proud of the way the staff reacts to those. That we are prepared for almost anything. Our planning involves sometimes, okay, we got to deal with it right now. And again, we're pretty proud of the way we respond quickly to issues out there. Now, quickly in some people's mind may not be as quick as they'd like it, but as quickly as we can. Bureaucracy is bureaucracy. I try to reduce it to the extent possible, but we still have to deal with the paperwork, the administration, the legal and regulatory aspects that we have to deal with.
We're going to have some issues, I'm anticipating, I guess, Terry, with at least one species of aquatic nuisance.
Right. Unfortunately, we found adult zebra mussels in the Red River, the entire length of the Red River in North Dakota this year. And we immediately went to an emergency administrative rule, which law allows us to do. We've met with people up in the Devil's Lake area. We're going to continue gathering ideas, I guess, more than anything. And a lot of those are going to be implemented before next spring. And there's not going to necessarily be regulatory ideas. It's information education. Some people would love us to have mandatory boat checks. Number one, it's not feasible. Number two, I don't think the public would stand for that. We have to get people to understand, comply with the regulations we have right now, and we'll be fine. We're going to target some areas for additional monitoring. I don't say we don't have to worry about it, but probably till right around June is when we're really going to have to start paying attention, because that's when zebra mussels spawn, and they're pretty prolific. They don't necessarily swim upstream, so the only way they're going to get someplace else is via a water transfer, a boat, a barge, a bait bucket. So we're just asking people to be extra vigilant, and you'll be hearing more about it in the next 6 months.
Basically, what you were talking about, the administrative rule changes, would be right now, anyone that leaves the Red River has to pull the plug out of their boat.
And they cannot transfer any water. If we find them transferring any water from the Red River, it is actually a Class B misdemeanor.
Now, you're talking about everyone pulling their plug.
Having to pull their plug, no matter if it's out of the water in transport, you will have to have the boat or the plug pulled out of your boat, yes.
All right, thanks, Terry. If you're interested in signing up for a hunter education class, now is the time to enroll. You can find a class near you on the Game and Fish website at gf.nd.gov. There is a list of available courses, where they're located, and the dates they're offered. Course space is limited and they fill up fast, so if you plan to take the course this winter, enroll now. For Director Terry Steinwand and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.